My name is Michelle Bennett. I work in Australia at the Human Rights Law Centre.
Mi nombre es Gerardo Bello Recochea, soy abogado, trabajo en la Fundación Pro Bono Venezuela y vivo en Venezuela, en Caracas, Venezuela.
Mi nombre es Sofía de Robina, soy abogada en el área internacional del Centro Pro en México.
Hi, I'm Aniko Bakonyi. I live in Budapest, Hungary, and I work for the Hungarian Helsinki Committee.
Hi, I'm Danny Fadul. I work at the Human Rights Law Centre. I come from Sydney, Australia.
I'm Bernadette Nagy. I'm from Hungary, and I'm working for the Hungarian Helsinki Committee in the communication group as a fundraiser and community organizer.
Hola, yo soy José Roberto Figueroa, soy de México.
My name's Tom Clark. I'm in Australia, and I'm a human rights campaigner.
Creo que todavía no sé qué son. Juan Camilo, si me estuviera escuchando se reiría demasiado de esto, pero o Lucas, hemos trabajado demasiado en esto, pero entender lo que para mí son las narrativas y el cambio de narrativas va a ser una manera de cambiar creencias instauradas en los individuos, ¿no?
Well, it's the way you present a story. It's a way you explain something and you want the other person to see your story through that perspective.
Que haya realmente una especie de conexión a quien recibe la historia y lo que está detrás de esa historia.
Narratives make a story recognizable and memorable, and narratives generates feelings, for example, and it makes it easier.
Without narratives, we're emitting noise. We need to be in a situation where we have a story to tell, and there's a clear story to tell.
Vamos a hacer un food truck de la fundación, vamos a hacer el Provene Móvil. Y de ahí entramos que sí, wow, ¿qué es esto, no? Y nos sentamos y bueno, desde ahí la idea fluyó y no tuvo, nadie la pudo detener, ¿no? Al final es una idea muy poderosa, una idea muy bonita. Y así es que nace lo que es la nave de Provene, que la nave de Provene lo que busca es hacerte despegar de tu realidad, hacerte despegar de esas creencias. Eso es lo que buscamos con este proyecto de Provene, es ese vehículo, esa herramienta que llega a las comunidades, aterriza, abre sus puertas y a través de estas actividades, esta dinámica, despegar de esa realidad a una realidad mejor.
Con JustLabs, el primer proyecto que tuvimos justamente fue intentar hacer una narrativa que pensamos que podía ser alrededor del tema de seguridad, para posicionar de alguna manera la relevancia de tener un modelo de seguridad menos militarizado, que es el que se ha caracterizado más en el país, para que fuera un modelo de seguridad más humano, más cercano a las personas, más respetuoso de los derechos.
Hubo un cambio de gobierno en el país y nos dimos cuenta que el nuevo gobierno no estaba dispuesto a negociar este tipo de puntos. Entonces, decidimos más bien ocupar todas esas energías en otro de los proyectos importantes en nuestro país, que es el acompañamiento a personas desaparecidas. Y entonces decidimos transformar nuestro proyecto para poder darle voz a estas personas que buscan a sus familiares decidimos que queríamos contar esas historias a través de diversos proyectos artísticos, y es como JustLabs nos está acompañando, ¿no? Vamos a ver qué es lo que funciona, qué es lo que no, y poder contar esas historias de manera que la gente las pueda escuchar y las quiere escuchar.
First, we really tried to find new target groups and different channels to communicate, and also new ways to share the messages we have. We decided to turn to young people, so we made a lot of research work to know them better. Are they active? Are they passive? Or are they even interested or not in these topics? Which platforms are they using on social media?
So we were trying to find messaging that catches their attention. We were also experimenting with new channels and new ways of communication, which was challenging in the sense that as a human rights organization, you can't really have very different messages, but we couldn't be much lighter in the sense of, of the issues that we are dealing with. But still, we had to find a way that would be interesting for younger people.
And now we have a really cool landing page with a lot of creative content. And these contents came from youth ambassadors who were creative people from the same age group which we were talking to. We got tattoos and GIFs and stickers and videos and podcasts and a lot of kind of stuff which we collected on this landing page. And also we have now these offline events. It's just very, very different from the online space. Even if it's a small group, you just see you talking to end, and you can try just different things.
One of the things that our research that we did for this campaign 2 years ago showed is that most Australians believe human rights are important, but they also think human rights are actually fine in Australia. So it's based on that assumption of like, we need to show people that there are human rights issues that need to be addressed and improved in Australia. That concept work led to two things that came out of it for the Human Rights Law Centre's end. One that was called the Time Machine Project, and another one that was called the Co-Design Project.
And that's things like we had the great brainstorm where we had a time capsule, which I absolutely loved, which was the idea of like putting yourself in history and which side of history would you have been on. So it's this really beautiful, big idea that, you know, we were talking about kind of collaborating with the museum or, you know, and it would be that you would literally like put yourself into, you know, the suffragettes protests on the women's right to vote and like which side of history would you have been on. And now in this very changed world, things like that where you're physically putting yourself into something and being part of something feels very far away.
The concept of the Co-Design Project was giving people in the community the ability to engage and in effect design their own sort of like human rights that they want to see. If you just had it as a like, which human rights would you like to see entrenched in our laws? There's a heavy barrier at the very beginning. That barrier is one of like, what are human rights? Why do we need to be involved in this process? So you kind of already need to be sold on the issue, so to speak. Then we want to be in a situation where it's something which is straightforward and easy for people to access without any prior reading or dealing with the issue. So that's why we turned it into a quiz, describing it as, can you guess where these human rights abuses happen?
En estos 12 años de trabajo en la fundación, el proyecto más retador y más enriquecedor a su vez en el que he trabajado en mi vida ha sido el proyecto de cambio de narrativas de JustLabs. Ha sido una locura en todos los sentidos. He conocido a gente maravillosa, he conocido a gente que me ha cambiado mi forma de pensar, he conocido a gente que me ha abierto la mente como abogado a pensar más allá de un cuadrado, a que nuestro trabajo no es solo esto, sino hay 1000 factores más.
Probably took a long time to understand what the process was, or what I was in the middle of, and I guess finding that right comfort level of, okay, this is an experimental space where all bets are off. We can think out loud, come up with ideas, explore. We've got permission to fail, but we're going to learn in that process. And I think that's a fantastic thing to try to achieve. In the early beginnings of when I sort of entered that process, that wasn't entirely clear to me. So I think a lot of not-for-profit organizations, we go into these spaces thinking, oh, we have to impress potential funders and we have to do this and that. And it's very much along that particular line. So I think kind of letting go or dropping your guard and saying, okay, there is no pressure here. We really can experiment in the lab, if you like. That was really a great exercise.
This was very different because it was the process that was important as well, not just the outcome. And I think that's a very different perspective. In the sense, it was very free, that we could also frame both the content and also the boundaries. We could ask for help when we needed help, but we could really experiment with lots of things. And I think it was a very elevating process in that way. Not something that happens very often.
I never met these kind of project managers who were not asking for numbers. They were asking for feelings and learnings and this kind of stuff. And it's just not what I used to hear from somebody who is managing this part.
Nos ha llevado de la mano en todo el proceso. Tal vez no te das cuenta en ese momento, pero posteriormente vas descubriendo que todo eso que has estado haciendo de la mano tiene 1000 aplicaciones, ¿no? Es muy, muy al estilo de Miyagi con Daniel San.
Creo que una es que nunca dar las cosas por sentadas, que siempre se puede innovar y cambiar y modificar. Si creemos que el mundo puede ser diferente, pues también hay que creer que las estrategias pueden ser diferentes y creo que eso, sobre todo cuando estás acostumbrado ya y a veces incluso ante el dolor te vuelves mecánico en hacer las cosas de una forma.
I think it's that the realization that it is really important to stop and think about what you're saying and stop and think about how you're communicating something.
And then these are often very sad, tragic events. And I don't know, there is a traditional approach of how you talk about them. And I think the major shift between that mindset, let's say, that conventional or usual or accepted way of discussing, let's say, human rights abuses is somewhat different from how we do them, how we represent more the human side of the story, how we dare to show not only the rational arguments, but also the personal or the more emotional ones.
I think a big change for our communication at the law centre, at the Human Rights Law Centre, was the realisation that you don't talk about laws, you talk about people. So you start with the person that is affected by a law rather than talking about the law itself.
I think the main thing I'll remember from the process, or the advice that I'll continue to give to organizations or campaigns will be very much to carve out space and time and ideally some resources to really reflect on your work and to experiment. You know, some of them aren't going to work, some of them might even backfire, but if you don't experiment, you'll never find that next winning formula. So I think that's something that I think will live with me for the rest of my career anyway, is that kind of passion or newfound sense of, yes, experimentation is a vital aspect of our practice that we need to maintain.
Then the other one is that it's interesting if you make a mistake. It's not a tragedy. Like, you don't want to make mistakes in general, but I think there is a lot to learn from them. And I think that's also an important lesson.
No solo me cambió a mí como persona, sino cambió también lo que era la fundación, a Provene. Este proyecto nos ha cambiado también, porque entendimos que, bueno, más la pandemia también, porque todo se ha ido como que sumando, ¿no? Entonces, hemos entendido que la labor que nosotros veníamos haciendo y como lo hacíamos no era suficiente, que nosotros tenemos que abrir nuestra mente para trascender, que los abogados podemos hacer un trabajo más creativo, que los abogados podemos inventar, que nosotros no estamos metidos en una oficina con un libro, sino que podemos desarrollar actividades geniales y loquísimas y llegar de manera más poderosa a las comunidades.
Voy a recordar muchísimo la gente, ¿no? La verdad es que los compañeros de JustLabs y los compañeros de otras organizaciones con los que hemos tomado los talleres siempre han sido un gran aporte en lo personal. Escucharlos me llena muchísimo porque puedes ver reflejados en ellos tus propias historias o puedes escuchar cosas que pueden suceder y aprendes bastante de estos procesos.
An incredible opportunity, which even though it was exclusively done online, allowed me to learn from the best practitioners around the planet, and learn the experiences and struggles from people around the world doing similar campaigns for human rights, to learn from each other. I think that for me is the thing that is most indelibly stuck in my mind from all of this, in terms of learning of values and narrative, and what others have experienced and the things that we've shared together through that.